I've been seeing many hunters having trouble with Raging Brachydios, and understandably so. Raging Brachydios is a difficult monster and ends up being a huge wall players run into when getting into the end game of Iceborne. And I want to help out, because I've gone through the game many times on my $100 weapon challenges, making my way to Raging Brachydios with gear that feels like it does so little to stop it. And on almost every challenge, I'm able to beat Raging Brachy with gear anyone can craft easily. No Fatalis gear, no Elatrion gear, just regular old stuff from monsters you've already taken down. Now, a quick note, Raging Brachydios is incredibly tough. There's only a couple other monsters in the game that are more difficult than this. The tips I'm giving you aren't a 100% surefire failure-proof guide. You may still experience failed quests against Raging Brachydios in spite of these tips. And when you do fail quests against it, take a deep breath, think happy thoughts, and remember that you're playing a game for fun against an insanely hard monster. It's okay. Literally everyone has failed against this guy. It's part of the challenge. And when you do get to take down Raging Brachydios, it's one of the best feelings out there. Now, let's start with what you can do to prepare before you get into the hunt. This would include things like your item box and armor and weapon selection, your Palico setup, and food skills. In terms of a weapon to play, I'll advise you to play anything that you're really comfortable with. There isn't a best and worst weapon for this hunt. They're all tough. Your skill with a weapon matters way more than the actual weapon moveset. When it comes to armor and armor skills, there's a few things I would be sure to slot in. Firstly, if you don't have Health Boost 3 on your build, you're missing out on the best skill in the game. That extra health means everything in essentially every hunt in Iceborne. Secondly, I'm a huge fan of Mushromancer 3, and I'm going to make a quick case for why Mushromancer is amazing against Raging Brachydios specifically. Raging Brachydios is fast. Like, really fast. He's going to hit you. When you have Mushromancer 3 in your build, you can eat Mandragoras, and those are literally max potions that you can grow. You can carry 10 Mandragoras in your pouch in addition to the 2 max potions that you can always carry with you. This gives you access to 12 max potions every time you leave camp, and that's a massive boon to your health pool. Because of how fast Raging Brachydios is, you also want to have ways to avoid damage, which is primarily done through guarding with shield weapons or dodging with everything else. The Devil's Blights that Mushromancer lets you eat gives you reduced stamina costs for everything. And I mean everything. Meaning you can dodge more often, run longer, guard more attacks, and use more attacks that use stamina before you run out. Not to mention that if you run out of stamina, you can eat another Devil's Blight and you'll instantly refresh your entire stamina bar. And lastly, and least importantly, toadstools actually matter in this hunt a bit. When you consume a toadstool, you have increased health regeneration for a few minutes. And Raging Brachydios is going to set you on fire occasionally, as well as the chip damage he'll hit you with every now and then. Toadstools can mean the difference between carding and not carding with the passive health regeneration it gives. It's worth having. I've got one more armor skill that will make your time against Raging Brachydios a whole lot easier. Blast Resistance 3, another defensive skill. Blast Resistance 3 reduces the amount of damage you take from blast damage, which is a lot of what Raging Brachydios does to you. And more importantly, Blast Resistance 3 keeps you from getting Blast Blight, which means you can walk over these goo puddles whenever you want because you ain't gonna get Blast Blight. Those puddles will still explode and damage you, but you can run over them, attack on them, punch claw through them, whatever you want without fear of Blast Blight. You can find these skills in a variety of ways. The easiest is through decorations, so you can just slot them into any armor set, but it's no guarantee that you'll have these decorations by the time you're at Raging Brachy. Health boost decorations can be melded at the Elder Melder, and I would highly advise melding 3 so you can always slot in this skill in any build. Later on, there are better decorations with health boost on them, but I would go for the decorations instead of crafting armor with health boost on it. Mushromancer is a little more difficult to find on decorations. If you have them, use them first as it's more efficient. My favorites are the combo decorations that have Mushromancer and Critical Eye on them. If you don't have the decorations, you're likely not going to find them quickly, as they're just a random drop from quest rewards. Instead, you could consider the Mushromancer Charm and upgrading it to level 3. Mushromancer is also found on Dober gear, which isn't the greatest gear, but it's not bad in certain circumstances. And lastly, Blast Resistance. Thankfully, there's a few good places to find this. Unfortunately though, Blast Resistance decorations can't be melded. But fortunately, they usually aren't too hard to find. You may have some decorations in your inventory now and you just never consider them. If you don't have the decorations or enough slots for them, you could craft Blast Resistance equipment pretty easily. My favorite is the regular Brachydios gloves. They have 2 points of Blast Resistance and 2 points of Agitator on the alpha versions, which is well worth crafting for this hunt in specific. That means you only need one more level of blast resistance, which you can slot in with the decoration or grab from another armor piece. With these 3 skills alone, you've already burned 9 armor skill slots, but these will keep you very healthy during the hunt. The rest of the skills can go into damage and skills that your weapon specifically needs to run well. These vary weapon to weapon. You likely know what these skills are already, so I'll let you fill those in for your build. Be sure to leave space for these skills I mentioned though, which you could do by slotting them into your build first, then putting the rest of your skills you want in last. You're likely not going to be able to use all the skills you normally use due to space, but don't fret, the skills you always use weren't helping you beat Raging Brachy easily before. A special note, if you're running an elemental build, make sure you use Ice Element against Raging Brachy, as it's very weak to ice, and it'll help shut down how much goo Raging Brachy drops on the battlefield as you hunt. The Ice Attack armor skill can be particularly good here if you're going all in on elemental build, as it'll give you a bunch of free damage. And one last special note for specifically my greatsword players out there. One of my easiest Raging Brachydios hunts was with the greatsword, and the reason was because I was running Frostcraft found on the Velkhana armor set. In addition to the armor skills mentioned before, Frostcraft is an incredibly powerful skill for greatsword and works very well in this hunt because you don't have time to charge true charge slashes anyways. So you may as well go for the hit and run playstyle and do big chunky damage on your draw attacks, then sheath your weapon and run away. Pair Frostcraft up with the Frostfang Barioth weapon and you've got a very potent combo that will make this hunt a breeze. And many weapons can pull off a Frostcraft build for this hunt if you want, but greatsword benefits the most and may be worth running over another build. All right, let's look at the item pouch real fast, and I'm gonna actually direct you to another video on my channel for this. It's built with Mushroom-mancer in mind, and you can find all the details in the video on screen right now, and it's also linked in the description below. Now, don't forget to equip your Palico too. Your Palico will do more for you in this hunt than you think. My Palico, Punchy, has actually taken down Raging Brachydios by himself solo. That's how good your Palico can be in this hunt. A Raging Brachydios that isn't moving is a dead Raging Brachydios. I would consider a sleep or paralyzed weapon for your cat, as they'll get at least one trigger of this effect in the hunt. Sleep weapons if you're running a weapon that does a big amount of damage in a single hit, like Greatsword, Charge Blade, or Gun Lance, or go for the para weapon if you're running a weapon that does a lot of attacks quickly, like Dual Blades, Bow, or Lance. Also, I would highly advise running the Flashfly Cage gadget on your Palico. Every one of the traps on this gadget matters and will help you a ton. The Boom Bug Cage specifically is very strong here, as the knockdown it provides is very long, and normally Raging Brachydios isn't on the ground much when you knock it over. The last way to prepare is with food skills, and there isn't a ton of things to consider here, but you definitely don't want to skip eating before this quest. The safest route is to eat for Feline Safeguard or Feline Insurance, which can be found occasionally on dishes when you eat in the Gathering Hub. These 2 food skills give you an extra cart on your quest, so you can mess up one extra time before failing. To guarantee you get the skill to trigger, just make sure you use a voucher or gourmet voucher before eating. If Safeguard or Insurance aren't available, I usually go for Feline Moxie as a decent second option. Moxie is similar to Safeguard and Insurance. Its purpose is to keep you from carding one time, but it's much harder to trigger. Moxie will keep you alive if you take a hit that does a massive amount of damage and would normally cart you. And since Raging Brachy hits so hard, it's a little easier to trigger this, but it's not guaranteed. Just remember that when Moxie saves your life, be sure to eat a Mandragora ASAP, as you're going to be at 1 HP until you heal, and Raging Brachy is likely going to follow up with another big hit. And now that you got your build, your item pouch, your Palico equipped, and some food in your belly, it's time to get into the hunt. There's a few big tips I can give you for the hunt itself that will save you some damage and lead to a more comfortable hunt with Raging Brachydios. Before heading in for your most difficult hunts, be sure to fire up some music that'll get you focused. And heck, you can even play that music from some sweet new Raycons, the everyday earbuds. With active noise canceling and a quick charging speed of 90 minutes of use for every 10 minutes of charge, you'll always have access to everything you want to be listening to anywhere you go. Raycon earbuds will make your days just that much better, with their goal of making an affordable and quality product that has been put through the test to make sure it'll fit your ears. They come with an array of gel tips that you can pick from to make sure you get the perfect and most comfortable fit. I've been using my Raycons while on the go as I sip my favorite mocha, get work done, and listen to the music that keeps me focused. I can pump up the jams while canceling the noise around me and still hang in a cozy place. Now, even if you're unsure, Raycon earbuds come with a 30-day happiness guarantee and free returns, so you can try them out and be confident that you're satisfied with your purchase. Fantastic! So click on the link in the description to get exclusive discounts on best-selling Raycon products. Thanks to Raycon for partnering with me. Now back to the video. All right, before heading over to Raging Brachydios, be sure to eat your food buffs. Parashroom, Nitro Shroom, Toadstool, and Devil's Whites are what I eat before I leave camp. I also collected any slinger ammo on the way because we could start this hunt with a flint shot, guaranteed. And before we jump in, know that there are 3 phases to this hunt. Phase 1 is the easiest and occurs outside the volcanic region of the Guiding Lands. This is a great place to learn the hunt and figure out Raging Brachy's moveset, as the danger here is small. The second phase occurs in the volcanic region and involves all the same moves as phase 1, but with the added danger of constant heat damage from the region itself, and the goo that Raging Brachy leaves on the ground can be hard to see in the lava parts of the map. And the third phase is, well, it's a spectacle, and I'll tell you more when we get there. Raging Brachy, if you're sneaky in your approach, can always be flint shotted to start the hunt. Go up behind him, swing out for the vantage point, claw that face, and turn him ASAP. Essentially, any direction he faces, he's going to be hitting a wall, so fire away and start with some sweet free damage. My priority for where to put damage is always the arms, with the head as a second. Unfortunately, it's also dangerous to attack the head and arms because Raging Brachy will drop goo occasionally as you attack those parts. That goo will near instantly blow up and hit you hard. Keep an eye out for this and be ready to dodge the goo. But also remember that when you eventually break the arms or head, those parts will stop dropping goo, which makes your hunt so much easier. When Raging Brachydios is back on its feet, the goal is to avoid taking hits, because this thing is going to make you hurt big time. Prioritize evading and guarding, and go for chip damage when you get the opportunity. If you can't reach its head or arms, the feet are the next best target, as you'll eventually rack up a topple when you do enough damage to the feet. And don't forget that you can speed up part breaks and topples by tenderizing the arms, head, and feet. This is hard to pull off, but seize the moment when you get the opportunity. There's one attack that always gets me carded that you need to watch out for. Well, maybe 2, but this one in particular is very strong. This one, right here. When Raging Brachy runs at you with an arm stretched to the side, he will hit you with that arm, which will stagger you and get you to take a chunk of damage. But the problem is you won't fall over and be immune to further damage. And Raging Brachy knows this, because after he tags you with that punch, there's a pool of goo below you that will explode quickly, and that will likely cart you. You need to look out for this attack and be ready to guard it or evade it. Guarding it is easy, yay shields. If you're not using a shield though, the dodge is difficult, but can be done. You can either dodge straight at Raging Brachy and try to go underneath the punch, which works for me about 75% of the time. Or you can see which way it's punching you based on what arm it's got stretched out and dodge the opposite direction. This works every time, but takes more reaction time because you need to know which way that punch is going. Once you get this attack evaded comfortably, you're really on the home stretch of the hunt until the final phase. Practice, practice, practice. You'll learn to recognize it after getting carded by it a few times. Phase 2 begins when Raging Brachy enters the volcanic region of the Guiding Lands, and there's a very important thing you need to do whenever you're hunting Raging Brachy here. Collect and eat this mushroom. When you pick it up, you should auto-craft it into a cool drink unless your pouch is full. Drink that cool drink because this negates the heat damage from the volcanic area, which makes you much healthier for this hunt, because you need all the health you can get here. I also take a second to eat a Devil's Blight and a Toadstool before going into this next area, just to make sure all my timed buffs are refreshed and running during the next phase. All the same rules apply for this phase of the hunt as before, but a reminder that the goo puddles are real hard to see in the lava, so I avoid the lava at all costs. And a quick helpful note, this volcano spot is really helpful. When it erupts, which Raging Brachydios triggers fairly often on its own, it will do 150 damage per tick when a monster stands in that area. If you can place a trap near here while the volcano is active, or just keep Raging Brachy in the vicinity while you hunt, you'll rack up multiple 150 damage triggers and do a bunch of free damage to it. Worth keeping in mind. And after hunting here, you'll eventually get a roar and a walk away to the other volcanic region zone. This is the trigger for the last phase of the hunt. Do not chase Raging Brachydios to this area. Go back to camp first, restock your items, refresh your buffs, then come back down, because this next phase is a doozy. Phase 3 is incredible and something that makes Raging Brachy such a memorable and amazing hunt. When you walk in, this happens. And on top of that, the exits to this zone are blocked and you're unable to leave. You're also prohibited from dropping traps on the ground, though your Palico can, which is also worth considering using. It's a fight to the death and also your time to prove yourself against this brute. Raging Brachy will still drop goo on the ground during this phase, but it doesn't explode in the same way it did before. After enough goo has been spread around the battlefield, Raging Brachydios will do this big roar. And all the goo areas explode simultaneously, doing massive damage. But not just to you, but to Raging Brachydios too. It is of high importance to be sure you're not on these goo puddles when that roar goes off, as you'll likely be carded instantly. Also, shield weapons can guard this damage, but it's not a guarantee you'll survive it still. Be careful fighting on these puddles. I have 2 huge tips for this phase of the hunt that will help you get to the end successfully and comfortably. Firstly, go for the knockdowns, topples, and mounts. Anytime you can get Raging Brachydios on the ground means you get free damage, and Raging Brachy can't pop all the goo on the ground to cart you. Still go for the chip damage here and there in the final phase, but look for the openings for flinch shots, beat damage, and jumping attacks using this hill. And secondly, the popping of the goo attack doesn't just cart you, it eventually kills Raging Brachydios. This last phase is more of a game of attrition than a knockout brawl. As long as you stay alive, Raging Brachydios eventually dies. Now you still need to attack Raging Brachy so that you don't die to the goo damage on accident. You'll still need to land hits, but take your time and play smart instead of fast. It's okay, Raging Brachy will eventually fold and a chunk of that damage will be done to itself. And eventually, when the goo settles, you'll get that sweet, sweet relief of slaying Raging Brachydios. Oh man, that'll do. Take a deep breath, unclench those butt cheeks, and let out a cheer for yourself, because you earned it, friend. This hunt is tough, but you did it. And now you get to reap the rewards of an incredibly powerful set of armor and weapons to go into the final hunts of the game. Good luck, and let me know how things go for your hunts in the comments below. Thanks so much.